Also having a live discussion with one of the key issues that is happening or is about to happen in the country. Now, since the first coronavirus case was reported in Wuhan in December last year, countries started mitigating factors and even emergency drills. But even before the World Health Organization had declared COVID-19 a pandemic. And one of the most vocal and also a mitigating factor was staying indoors. Sanitize, keep the distance, keep clean. And people retreated to their home in earnest. And of course, it came with a myriad of challenges. And one of the challenges is gender-based violence. Yes, it has been there, but there has been a spike in the cases reported on gender-based violence. And today being the 24th of November, beginning tomorrow, 25th of November, for 16 days, the United Nations will be carrying out an annual campaign which is dubbed 16 Days of Activism Against Gender-Based Violence. And that is exactly what we will be looking at. And I'm hoping and I'm quite sure that this year's theme and also events will be quite different because of the COVID-19 pandemic, which has already stirred the water. That is the conversation that we'll be having this morning. Lensa Odingo is our sign language interpreter. My name is Njue. And of course, I welcome you on all our social media platforms, including Facebook, Twitter, and of course, YouTube. Your suggestion, comment, question on even where you are watching us from. That said, welcome. To this year's theme, the 2020 theme, Unite campaign theme will be Orange the World, Fund, Respond, Prevent, Collect. Of course, we will be getting into deeper waters when it comes to matters gender-based violence. And before I introduce my guest, you do remember President Uhuru Kenyatta in his State of the Nation address, he also talked about the gender-based violence and of course mental health and of course some measures to mitigate that. I will also touch on a quote and also a tweet by South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, who said yesterday, curbing the scourge of gender-based violence will require an act of solidarity from every sector of the society. Legislative and policy measures instituted by governments cannot alone rid the country of this problem. That is South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, who also included and said during his televised national address yesterday, called for 5 days of mourning, not just for people who have succumbed to the COVID-19 pandemic, but also for those killed as a result of gender-based violence. And when you talk about gender-based violence, women come into the head first, but it also goes the two ways, both men and women, but women have been on the receiving end. And joining me on set now as a formidable tag team, on my immediate left, we have Gloria Seleyan, who is a human rights advocate. Karibu.
Asante.
And on my extreme right, we have Jeremiah Kutanya, who is the executive director of PICO, which is Pastoralist Integrated Concerns Organization. Lady and gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Perhaps to start with the lady, tell us something about yourself and your work as a human rights advocate.
Okay, my name is Gloria Seleyan Mositet from Kajiado County, Magadi Ward, the far place of the border of Kenya and Tanzania. Okay, I'm 25 years old. I've just completed my degree in December last year. I've just graduated with a bachelor degree of business administration. And I'm a Maasai girl child. And I'm not working currently. I'm still looking, searching for a job. But I do fight for the rights of the, not human rights, but especially women. I'm in the forefront of fighting for the rights of girl child back in the village down there. Yeah, because I want to see many girls get educated and stand for themselves. Yeah.
Indeed.
Thank you. As you said, I'm Jeremiah Kutanya from Magadi, Kajiado County. I'm also a human rights defender. It is so unusual for men from the Maasai community to be frontline to advocate for the rights of girls. But in this case, me and other like-minded men have come together and form an organization called PICO, Pastoralist Integrated Concerns Organization, to address issues affecting the community, the pastoralist community, right from gender issues, gender-based issues, education, even livelihood, because without livelihood we cannot talk about the existence of human being. Thank you very much for your show, and hopefully we'll have a fruitful discussion.
Indeed. And perhaps to go to Gloria, talking about gender-based violence, the United Nations have talked about 1 in 3 women will or has gone through either physical or even sexual-based violence, a worrying trend, and especially in third world countries.
Yeah, that's very true. Like during this corona or even before corona, women have been facing a lot of challenges, especially back there in the villages. Like I see in the city things are different, but back there in the villages, something should be done. Women are facing challenges, girl child, and even women who are married. Like you find girls are as young as they are, they get married at the age of even 12 years, 13 years. Some things, yes, it's our culture, long time ago, but it's time we come out of that culture and we advocate for education of the girl child. Yeah, girls are facing a lot of changes. FGM, early marriages, those who are married, being beaten every now and you cannot question their husband. They are being undermined so much, and it's time that we are advocating and standing up to say even a girl has the equal rights as a man. Yeah.
Indeed. Jeremiah, perhaps you can add on that, coming from a community, you're talking about Pastoralist Integrated Concerns Organization, and without singling out your community, but there have been, as Gloria has talked about, there have been cases of gender-based violence, early marriages, FGM, and other myriad of challenges.
Well, I think it's a high time we start discussing about, right from the grassroots level, we start a discussion about what's really good for us and what's not good. Because for a long time we've been having these issues to do with early marriages, FGM, and there have been a lot of intervention, like legislation. We have very good legislation on the same. We've also had some advocacy, but it's not really enough. I see there's a disconnect between what's reported in terms of data and the actual happening at the grassroots. Because, for example, you're told 78% of masses have 78% prevalence in FGM for women between 15 and 24 years. But really, the actual figure might be perhaps higher than that. So there is a disconnect. And I think it's because we could be using the wrong interventions or the wrong channel to address this issue. And then at the onset of coronavirus, girls are at home. They are now locked down to their perpetrators, which perhaps could be their parents or even their relatives. And also we're saying that come January, maybe, hopefully, when schools are reopening, we may not see substantive number of girls going back to school.
Indeed.
And it's because of this gender-based violence. So we really need to have a conversation right from at the grassroots level. We talk about what is really happening and what is the best way to handle it. Yes.
And in looking at gender-based violence, and perhaps to touch on that, Gloria, you've heard people talk about, why didn't she leave? Why was she still sticking around, you see? Other than listening and believing survivors, we need to change that trend, don't you think? Because mostly these people even are stigmatized, and others are even afraid to come out and speak about it.
Okay, they can't leave. Okay, in my culture, where I come from, the Maasai, to divorce is something that is not common. It's not, the community has not accepted that you can just wake up and divorce in marriage. So I think those are the cultures that we need to keep off as a community, because it's better to walk out if it's not working out, instead of you staying there. And we see cases like the previous one for Mweni, even your hands are cut off. So, but now in my culture, for a woman to wake up and quit that marriage is not something easy. it's unheard of. They like solving things, like elders are called, they talk. After another month, they are there about the same issues, of which to me, in my perception, I think it's something that we need to keep of.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And perhaps you can add on that, because talk about why didn't she leave, we told you, instead of we hear you, we believe you, we are with you, we stand with you. Of course, hold that thought, but we are crossing over to Ngong Road, where the police have partnered with Plan International, of course, on matters gender-based. Let's have a listen in on what is happening there.
A very good morning to you from the studio. Ben Troy Njue coming to you live from Hilton Doubletree Hotel along Ngong Road, whereby National Police Service and officers from the police service are being trained and equipped with skills concerning on how to implement policy making about the idea of gender-based violence. Considering that this year, especially the cases of gender-based violence have risen, especially with women and young girls. And now joining me is the Director General from the Director Community Policing, Gender and Child Protection, Judy Lamet, to at least give us a brief on what's happening and the whole training. Welcome to KBC.
Okay, thank you very much. As you've heard, my name is Judy Lamet. I'm an Assistant Inspector General of Police and the Director Community Policing, Gender and Child Protection. Today we are meeting at the Doubletree by Hilton on Ngong Road. And we have brought all officers, the officers commanding police stations in Nairobi, to be trained on matters to do with community policing and also to be trained on sexual and gender-based violence. So far, we have trained all OCSs in the country by the support of the Deputy Inspector General Kenya Police Service. We found it is important for the OCSs that is where everybody reports their cases, and that is where the members of the public meet the police presence, apart from the patrols. It is the center of delivery for police officers. So it means that these are the people who need to have perfect knowledge on how to interact with the community. We are happy because they have understood the concept of community policing, and community policing is the modern way of policing worldwide. We need to have a partnership with the police, and we need that the police know that the public are the people they are supposed to serve. So today we have all OCSs from Nairobi area or Nairobi region, and we are being sponsored by Plan International to have this training. It's a one-day training for the OCSs, and then we will have officers from the gender desk trained for 2 days.
Okay, following the government's protocols and measures put in place with the COVID-19 cases rising, we have seen that there's a lot of increase in gender-based violence cases. How many cases maybe you can give us the statistics on maybe how many cases of gender-based violence you have came across or handled?
Now, with the containment measures, especially during the time when we had the curfew, people were confined in spaces. And it is true there was an upsurge of sexual and gender-based violence. But we came up with a toll-free line, which is 0800-730-999. This line is for use for all members of the public to call the police on matters to do with sexual and gender-based violence. And since that line has been going on, we have received several cases and we have addressed them. At the moment, you see the cases are steadily going down. They are not going on up, but towards the beginning they were really high. So it is important that members of the public know that there is a line where they can call without any charges so that their matters have been addressed. We have also received positive feedback on how this line is handled and how the cases have been handled. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That was Judy Lamet, the Director for Community Policing, Gender and Children Protection. And now I just want to interact with Caroline, who is also from the Plan International organization, and maybe to give us a brief on the whole idea of bringing the police and equipping them, or trying to train them and sensitize them on the issue of gender-based violence.
Thank you so much. We as Plan International, we're beginning the 16 days of activism that begin tomorrow up to the 10th of December. Part of this, we have been able to allow partner with the community police together so that we can be able to begin the freedom online. One of the things that we have noticed is that the safety of the girls online is very, 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 very key, and we have decided that we will partner with the police in terms of this. When we talk about freedom online, we believe that the safety of the girls is very key in terms of safety online. And one of the things is that we want to ensure that there's community, and we also want to ensure that the people in the community, including the parents, are involved in this whole process. We talk about freedom online. We want to protect the girls. Even as they go online, they're protected.
What is the main agenda? You said that the 16-day activism of concerning the gender-based violence is starting tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What is the main agenda and the objective?
Our main agenda for the 16 days of activism is for people to be able to respond, to be able to fund, and to be able to connect in terms of gender-based violence. We want to ensure that gender-based violence comes to an end. And one of the ways we're doing that is through Freedom Online, and even being able to come together with different stakeholders to be able to people to be sensitized in terms of how they can be able to respond. What we're doing with the community policing is for them to understand the procedures, the operating procedures on how they can be able to respond and to be able to interview the victims so that they can be able to have a good and smooth transition in terms of how they report and how justice will be brought.
Okay, with this, the rate at which we're seeing the COVID-19 has ravaged many things globally. Also, the issues concerning gender-based violence has increased, especially for women and young children. What is your take? What can you say that you want to achieve within this duration?
One of the things is that we want to tackle the issues that are coming out. With COVID coming out, one of the things that we realized is that the girls are being affected. Like, for example, when the schools closed, a lot of girls were not able to get sanitary pads. So we went out, we were able to provide sanitary pads within the communities. At the same time, we realized because of the families getting together, there was no space for them to be able to maybe even to take a shower. So we were able to provide showers for the girls to be able to go within the community, to have showers so that they can be decent enough. Now, when we realized that some of the girls were going in terms of transactional sex to get some of these commodities, we came up with different initiatives like the pads, distribution of the pads, as well as using the community facilities for bathing, but at the same time also sensitizing the parents and the community in terms of how they can protect the girls and even the girls protecting themselves.
Thank you so much. Those are just the sentiments from Caroline and Judy Lamet, who is the Director of Community Policy, Gender and Children Protection, just to give us a limelight on the whole idea and the training that is being held today here, training officers from the National Police Services and equipping them with skills and knowledge on how to implement community policies just to curb the vice of gender-based violence. Those are the things that we are getting now from this, but we'll just keep you updated and try to give you the whole information in the subsequent bulletin. Back to you, studio, Njue.
Thank you so much, Khalid Abdullahi, coming to us live from Gong Road, where Plan International has partnered with the Kenya Police Service, of course, to sensitize their officers on handling gender-based violence. And perhaps to bring in my panel, what do you have to say about what she said? She said something very interesting. That is Judy Lamet, who is the Director of Community Policing, because of course these things, or the gender-based violence, happens in the community. And as Gloria had pointed out earlier, is that sometimes you find that these people don't get justice, because what happens is that some elders have a sit down and talk about the issue, and of course we know very well we have just swept everything under the rug, and that thing blows up later. And perhaps you've seen cases of gender-based violence, actually some ending up in death. And you saw Cyril Ramaphosa giving a 5-day of course mourning period for COVID patients, and of course those killed during the COVID period by gender-based violence.
I think what she's saying is very true. A lot of cases don't see the light of the day. In fact, most of them are handled at the kangaroo court back at home.
Yes. Simply
because we're still not convinced as a community. They are still not convinced that really their culture is a gender-based violence. So that's why I've said earlier on that we really need to engage the community. We have a conversation rather than, using force. Well, legislation work, but because it's a cultural, it's more of a cultural aspect. We need a cultural intervention. We need a conversation at the grassroots. We need a conversation about the culture. Let us interrogate the culture, because if we don't interrogate the culture, we'll always be hiding our cases under, that what I'm calling it a kangaroo court, and also. We need to also strengthen the institutions that are responsible to defend the human rights. The policies. Talk about what Plan International is doing. We also need to engage the police so that any case related to gender-based violence is handled and made sure that justice is, justice is realized. Yeah,
indeed. Gloria, perhaps you can add on that. She talked about, of course, everything happens in the community where everyone can see, but we kind of tend to just let it just die.
Okay, that's very true. Like in where I come from, the Maasai community, yes, these men are seeing what is going on. They are watching everything happening. They are watching that woman being beaten every day, every evening or every morning because of petty mistakes. Like if you go to the center and come late a few hours, you are being some petty things,
yes,
which should not be happening. And what I urge is that sometimes it's good to take to give the law to take its hands. In where I come from, you cannot just wake up and go and take action. Using maybe the government forces. No, they like that thing, the so-called wazee kijiji, to talk about, to solve everything, which is making women to suffer. Because at the end of the day, where I come from, they take all the blames to the women. They don't give them their right. Even if they see that it's you are being harassed, they just solve the issue softly, and the man will not get punished, and that's why he repeats again and again, which to me it's very unfair. It's better sometimes to take action if these people are not giving the right solutions to this thing, because it's better to walk out. Even if they'll give you all sort of names. Where I come from, if you walk out of marriage, you'll be tinted a lot of negative things. They just give all negative names to you. So
most of the women choose to just die quietly.
Yeah, you find they are not happy. Almost 60%, I can say, they're not happy in their marriages, but they don't have any alternative because most of them are not learned. They depend on those men to bring them food on the table, shelter, clothing, everything, 100%. So they say, even if I walk out of, sometimes you ask some of them, why are you there? You're just suffering day in, day out. They say, where will I go? I don't have anything. I can't go back to my father's home with all these children. You find them, they're just suffering there for years and years and years until they die.
And perhaps to bring in what you talked about, the family institution, let's look at gender-based violence. Started way before everyone of us was born, but we still experience it each and every day. And looking at the 2020 cases, the curve just keeps rising. Is it the time that we need to teach the next generation and, of course, learn from them, that we need to teach them how to respect institutions of the family and, of course, of marriage? Yeah. And should we inculcate that in our reading culture, even if it's even in the curriculum?
And then I think to begin with is we need to adopt the formal education. Illiteracy plays a key role as far as perpetrating the negative culture. The culture is good. We cannot negate everything in the culture. But there are that harmful cultural practice like gender-based violence, which is not accepted, at least at this generation. So let's first, before we even talk about changing a syllabus to adopt an appropriate practice in terms of gender-based violence, let us first campaign for education, formal education, because she's here because she's able to talk for herself. Her voice needs to be heard, and she has to force her voice through. So if we have several girls like her educated, I'm pretty sure things will change. The curve will tend to start coming down. And then now we'll do the monitoring afterward. If things are still persisting, now we incorporate that teaching in our curriculum. So I think to begin with,
just start with the family institution.
Family institution, let's advocate for education. Let's campaign for the education right from the grassroots level.
And perhaps to fortify that, I have some statistics here. Kilifi County has recorded at least 175 cases of gender-based violence since the pandemic was reported in Kenya in March. And what happened is that the Department of Gender partnered with FIDA and other organizations, including the Kenya Red Cross, to educate men and women in rural areas, and especially the pastoralist communities, and informal settlements on the need to eradicate this vice. Should other counties follow suit?
Sure. In fact, in the Maasai setup,
yes,
men are the custodians of their culture. And we think that this culture is contributing to most of this gender-based violence. Maasais are the custodian of the culture. For example, the Morans. They are the custodians. They pass their cultural beliefs and traditions to other generations. And they are the potential fathers of girls and children and boys maybe. And they are also the potential husbands of these girls, because most of this gender-based violence, at least in the pastoralist community, is mostly pronounced in the girls or in women. So it is a high time we bring men on board, especially the youth, the Morans. We need them to rally behind the campaign for children's rights. It's a high time to be brought on board to discuss what is the right culture that we need to pass back to the next generation, and what is the best practices that we can perpetrate to the subsequent generations. And in that, I'm very sure, if, for example, FGM, if I decide not to marry a girl who is cut, and other 10 men decide on the same, I mean, the rate of, I'll demand, I'll be in a better position to demand for the right product for me. And that will now call for an action to the end of the pen, that we need not to cut our girls, because the men have decided not to marry cut girls. And if we do that over years, in 5-6 years, we'll have end FGM. Otherwise, as it is now, force may not be the only force, or policies might not be the rule of the thumb case or solution for this gender-based violence. Yeah.
And perhaps you can add on what Jeremiah has talked about, and you've seen what Kilifi County did to sensitize people. People don't even know that it's their right to go and report, and they're supposed to get justice.
Yeah, I told you that where I come from, if we do what Kilifi are doing, I don't know what will happen back there in the ground. For us to wake up and go and take action and go to the court or go somewhere, the police station,
They need, first of all, to know that they are not supposed to be beaten, they are not supposed to be abused.
They know.
Information.
They know. They have the information that if I take a step and go to the police station, an action will be taken. But there is that fear in them, that what will happen after I've done that. That is the main fear. You know, in my place, like, men marry more than even 4 wives, as much as you can afford. So if you decide to wake up because you're being beaten and go and take the law at hand now to the police station or the DO or anybody, that husband might take a big action and decide that he'll never step to his home again.
But we need to help these people. This cannot continue.
Yeah, we are
empower,
trying.
even if it's the men themselves.
Yeah, we are trying day in, day out. And like Jeremiah said, it's now time that we try to concentrate on the youth. The youth now, those who have not married or those who have married but some years back. Because those are the people that we can change the community. Because like our fathers, it's a difficult thing to change them now. But we can talk to the youth, these small boys who are growing up, so that we can change the story in the near future. Yeah. And
you wanted to touch something on that.
Yeah. On the issue of about Cliffy and what they are doing.
Yes.
Well, I think fight against gender-based violence should be contextualized to the specific environment.
Yes.
Specific interventions depends on case to case, because if we try to adopt what other counties are doing, we may not go right. I'm not demonizing what's happening there, but I'm just saying we need a contextualized kind of interventions. Could be the right thing to do in County A is to empower parents to say no to gender-based violence. But maybe in another county like the Maasai community, we really need to talk or involve the youth, especially the custodian of the culture, because it's a cultural practice. So I think it's a case by case. It depends with which environment you're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's bring in the COVID factor into the mix. And of course, the UN has talked about financial constraint. Of course, all the countries are on their knees because of the COVID-19, and financial independence currently is not really something that is quite different from what we were having before COVID came into Kenya and, of course, the whole world. And financial oppression, we've seen the UN talking about women accepting handouts, but later the men that they got the financial handouts from, or anything they got from that man, is reciprocated using sexual favors. And of course, that will bring in a lot of problems.
Yeah. Simply because that tells us that women are not financially independent. They are not financially empowered. And it calls for some sort of empowerment so that they can make their independent decision. Because the reason why they accept those financially in exchange of sexual favors is because they don't have that independent financial independence. And that now calls for two things, according to me. One, we need to empower them financially. Look, some entrepreneurship skills, some financial literacy, and the second thing is also education. I'm really into education, because when they get educated, they could get a job, and they will not need any favors from anybody in exchange of sexual exchange. Yeah.
That's very true. I just want to say what my friend has said, that education is the only thing, and it's the only lasting solution to this problem. Because if a girl gets educated, there are some things you cannot bargain on them. Like during this COVID, many girls are pregnant.
Yes.
We know that.
Many.
Many.
Yes.
In fact, down there in the village, things are messy. I can say it because I'm just from there.
Yes.
Like as young as class 6 girls are pregnant.
Yes.
12 years, 13 years, you wonder what will happen with them. When school opens, I know the number of girls will go down present in classes. Reason being these favors that we are talking about. A man, not even boys, some of them are even educated men, just decide to give 100 bob to a girl, a primary girl or a secondary girl, to bargain for sexual favors only. To an extent, they used to buy them pads. A girl cannot afford a pad. Their parents are not learned. They can't afford those sanitary towels. So the boys end up buying them sanitary towels in exchange of their sexual favors.
Yes.
Which is very unfair for sure. During that COVID season, we had to take a step like learned girls from Kajiado County and women. We end up collecting resources from friends, county governments and everywhere to buy sanitary towels, to take them back there in the village, and soaps and sanitizers and everything. At least while we were doing motivational talks, to talk to the girls and show them that if you go to school, if you work hard in school, you'll come and you'll afford these things. You try to talk to them to avoid these men. For sure, I think education is the only thing that will change. The problem now is that these girls are taken to school, but they end up dropping early marriages. This FGM is making girls to feel like they are now women in their society. In my culture, if you get circumcised as a girl, you are now referred to as a woman, and now not a child. And in fact, some of them are primary girls, secondary girls. But if they undergo FGM, they feel now that they are women in their homesteads. And that is making them to engage in these behaviors, sexual behaviors, which they end up dropping in school because of pregnancy. And their fathers and the elders take action and take them and give out them to get married as early as 14 years. Why? Because you have a child, you are circumcised. You are qualified to be somebody's wife.
As tender and as young that kid is.
They don't care. Like sometimes, I feel like sometimes they happen, even in my immediate neighbors. And I feel like I should take an action. And if I consult some of the men there, what is now this dad doing? A girl has not dropped. Somebody even mtoto agenda shule, and she's not pregnant, and he decides because he's broke. You know, poverty is another reason of these things happening. Poverty is the main reason also. If a father gets broke and he has many bills to pay and many expenses, and he's seeing a daughter there, he just feel like she should get married for me to get the cows and the dowry, so that I can pay the other bills or I can take others to school. Which is so bad for sure. And if you try to intervene, they say that you'll get cursed. Okay, in my culture, those men like saying you'll get cursed. We'll curse you. If you do that, we'll curse you. How can you take your dad to jail? How can you take action to your dad? Or to, to us, anybody who is in the age of your dad is referred as your dad. In my community, a child belongs to everybody. So if you try to take action, they start threatening you that you'll get cursed. But you tell them, why? What are you doing now? What if they don't take action now? You'll be jailed. So you see, I think education is the only thing that will change these people. And also, the law should also be serious. Those chiefs, the hands of the government back there in the ground, the chief, the DO and the DC should also be serious on this issue, because sometimes those girls run to the chiefs. If they run to the chiefs get compromised, and the story in Alala too evil.
Indeed. And I want us to also bring in the family again, because I remember beginning of this month, a Catholic Bishop of Ngong, actually his name is John Obala, said that the church is deeply concerned by the cases of gender-based violence, and of course told us that we should embrace the family as the first institution that the child is brought up in. And of course cases of GBV are on the rise because of the COVID-19, but actually looking at the family setup, we are supposed to be showing our kids the way, because they are the next adults. After us, they are our next adults, right? And looking at what we were witnessing the day before yesterday, 44 youths arrested in a house, actually teenagers, let's not even call them youths, teenagers, ages of 13 to 17. The moral decay in the family setup.
Well, there's that issue of moral decay, and it's so unfortunate that the society is now experiencing a very unfortunate, unprecedented kind of moral decay. And we really can't, if we project in the next 5 years, it will be more, it may be more worse than now. Now, at the family setup, right from the grassroots, because we're talking of your father, your dad, and the siblings, and even maybe your relatives, uncles and cousins. At that setup, at that level, we need a kind of a discussion, because a community is made up of the household and the families. So for us to talk about the community, we start from that family. So one, that family, at the family level, they need to start campaigning for education. That's one. Secondly, they need to have like kind of I can't call it strict, because strictness also comes with an expense.
Yes.
But some care. You know, I can't imagine my child at 1 a.m. not being in the house. I mean, that's now a failing my responsibility.
Yes.
And they're not yet 18 years and above. They're still under 18, so they are still under my custody. So right from the family level, they need to take care. They need to take responsibility. They need not to allow such things to happen. Because the issue of 44 teenagers found in a house, partying, and there was a woman who allowed them to do that.
Yes.
I mean, that is at first.
A parent, actually.
Sorry?
The woman who is a parent.
Who is a parent, maybe even her child was there. So that means she failed at her responsibility, because as she said, her child belongs to the community.
Yes.
So if I see her child misbehaving, to intervene. So at that level, we need to take responsibility as parents. Yeah.
Indeed. And we will be getting back to the church setup, of course, not the church only, the church, if it's a church, the mosque, the synagogue, or even the temple. Their role, actually, right now, can they chip in and help us to actualize that the GBV ends completely? Of course, we will be discussing that plus much, much more when we come back after this quick break. You are watching Channel 1 News Check, and I have a tag team here which is helping us look at the gender-based issue, where, remember, from tomorrow, 25th of November to 10th of December, we have the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. Of course, the cases have skyrocketed because of the COVID-19 pandemic, and of course the staying home directive by many governments, including our very own. We'll be back after this short quick break.
When the world changed, it made us go back to the simple joys and love the little things even more, like serving up your best, eating together, and sharing more. Now, we'll take nothing for granted and always remember to taste the simple joys. Enjoy the magic of Christmas with Coca-Cola.
Tonight on KBC Channel 1.
Tread very carefully with me.
I feel guilty. I couldn't protect him.
From whom? Jimo.
Wewe watch DVD kwanza alafu tamu.
It is an all-Egyptian affair and a first for CAF as two home teams face each other in the final of the 2020 CAF Champions League in Alexandria. Al Ahly will be all out to maintain their dominance in the elite African clubs competition against their arch rivals Zamalek, who are raring for a fight to the death. You cannot afford to miss this thriller on the 27th of November only on your true sports partner, KBC Channel 1 from 10 p.m. We have a lot in store for you. Be on the lookout.
tonight on KBC Channel 1.
They are looking into the woman's connections to try and find out who really is the one behind the idea.
I can only think of two suspects, Francisco or Sophia.
You're the one who's guilty of all of this. You got me into this mess. That guy's been acting strange lately. Keep an eye on him and find out what he's up to.
So you're the one who called the cops on her, you're right. I'm going to make you regret that, Roxana.
That Ramon guy is not even in the slightest bit interested in you.
In Love with Ramon.
Welcome back to Channel 1 News Check, and before we head at that break, we are talking about the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. Of course, it is a United Nations campaign that will begin tomorrow, the 25th of November, and will go all the way to December the 10th. And helping us with that discussion is Jeremiah Kutanya, who is the Executive Director of PICO, that is Pastorist Integrated Concerns Organization, and Gloria Seleyan, who is a human rights advocate. And perhaps first of all, to start with you, Gloria, as Bishop had talked about, institutions, religious institutions, of course, they have a role to play, because I'm quite sure a lot of people listen to the church. Of course, they listen to what they are told, and the readings, of course, of various religions, whether it is a mosque, a church, a synagogue, a temple. What more can the church do, and especially now that we have the COVID-19 pandemic, to try and help in the fight against gender-based violence?
The church also have a role to play by building the morals of their followers. You see, when you grow up, when you make your children grow up in the church environment, some morals, some of us made it in our academics, because we used to go to church, our pastors used to mentor us, to talk to us, and we used to respect our church leaders. Of course, the youth camps. Youth camps, the seminars. You see, instead of those children being idle at home, loitering around the whole day and months and years now, if these pastors will give them a busy thing to do, a busy schedule, I think, to occupy their minds. I think these things are happening also because of the idleness those children have. And I think it's high time that the church take part in rebuilding the morals of the children back in the society. Because the society we are in now is very spoiled, I can say, compared to when we used to grow up, actually. And compared to how our parents used to tell us how the world was during their days. I think it's a high time that the pastors and the church leaders, the mosque leaders, take action and talk to their members, even the parents, even the fathers now, who are the head of the families. This issue of gender-based violence, the man mistreating the woman, can also be solved under the church bracket. Yeah, you should revisit your members, talk to them. If there is an issue, if the women fear to go to take action, they can visit their pastor and tell them, so that they can come and talk to those husbands. Some things, I think a church has a big role to play in the society. It has. In fact, in building morals, it has a big thing. Even children nowadays don't go to church. It's by their choice. They are not forced by their parents.
Yes.
And that's why the society is being rotten right now. It's getting rotten and rotten every day. Yeah.
I'll concur with what Gloria is talking about. Kids now even have the choice of whether to go to church or not. When we were growing up, that was a must. I remember starting from Sunday school all the way to the youths and till we were adults. Perhaps you can add on that, because looking at the camps that were there during my time, many are fizzled out.
Yeah, I really concur with her and also you, that the church plays a key role as far as, or the religion you belong to, whichever religion you belong to, plays a key role, because in the setup, in the pastoral setup, most of the people go to church, and there are these morals that are taught in church. So my take is that the religion leaders should also incorporate the GBV training and GBV, discussion in their spiritual teachings, because I believe I'm a Christian, and there are some scriptures that talks about respect your wife, respect your husband.
Yes,
those need to be, emphasized more, because there's a key role they play. There's always a way that when my pastor says something, I'll hold it nearer to my heart, because we believe the pastor is always right, and that belief need to be used of in the right way. So I concur. The spiritual leaders have a very key role to play, and they need to join the move. I'm happy that the Catholic, you say Catholic what? Bishop. Yes. Has started talking about it. You can imagine how many followers he has. Yes. In terms of the church, those who belong to that church. If that pastor talk like that, he'll take about 500,000 people. Yes. And if other pastors and other spiritual leaders speak on the same language, we'll change the world.
Yes. Away from that, people who have undergone GBV, of course, they need shelters, hotline, counseling, and support, of which in many countries, and case in point is Kenya, we lack those services in earnest. Looking at, you've talked about the pastoralist communities. Yeah. These are some things that are unheard of in some of the regions that we have in Kenya. What more can we do?
The government and other development sectors, development agencies like NGOs, need now to invest on infrastructure that are required to address this gender-based violence. Because if you talk of rescue centers, for example, the number of rescue centers we have in our counties cannot even go beyond 5. Yes. In the whole sub-county I come from, we don't have any, and it is a very vast one, a very vast sub-county. So it is a high time the government to also prioritize gender-based violence as a serious case, a serious issue, and they need to invest on the infrastructure required. Yeah.
Perhaps you wanted to add on that?
No, I think my friend has said a lot. That's very true. The main thing is the government to create that room.
Yeah, because looking at we don't even have so many hotlines that somebody can, even cancelling. You can't be cancelled over phone.
Yeah. No.
Yes.
We need those rescue centers. Like you said, in the whole of sub-county, that is Kajiado West, we don't have even one. I think in our county we have like 2 or 3 in the whole Kajiado County, which is not enough. Yes. And it's a county where these challenges is very common. FGM, early marriages, children are being rescued every day. Sometimes they even say, yes, you brought us a girl, but there is no space. So that's actually the main challenge. Yeah.
And let's know about signs. Of course, there are telltale signs that somebody is undergoing GBV. We have either somebody is withdrawn, or somebody has injuries, or somebody always tends to be out of this world, right?
Yeah.
But many people don't read these signs. We've seen a lot of people taking their own lives because of undergoing gender-based violence. How more can we do perhaps to learn and to help people who actually, for lack of a better word, don't want to be helped because they don't want to come out because of victimization and perhaps a repercussion and fear of what the society and even what the partner is going to do, if it's the partner, because mostly people are abused by an intimate partner.
I think we need to have, we need to create an environment where these people can open up, because most of the victims or survivors end up even dying, committing suicide. Yes. And you might meet somebody in the village and he's okay, he's looking good, but in real sense, deep inside, they are emotionally disturbed. So we need to entrench emotional well-being into our discussion on GBV. And also capacity building. We need to build a capacity, or people responsible need to build a capacity of maybe our institution responsible to address GBV, so that they're able to even tell when somebody is not all right. And the administration, from the top administration to even to the grassroots level, need to be built capacity on the way to read signs that they can tell, seriously, this person is not physically injured, but he's emotionally disturbed, and they start helping at that level. Yeah. So building capacity is also is very key.
Gloria, perhaps to add on that, and also, of course, funding of women organizations. We have many women organizations who try at least to empower women financially, and of course also to deal with gender-based violence. But these organizations mostly are non-governmental. What more can the society or even the governments, even now we have counties, can do perhaps to fortify that people can get help?
Okay, this can be done. Okay, nowadays there is these women form groups, women groups, which get grants or even loans from the government. Like nowadays with the women rep offices in the counties, women are able to get loans. They form groups of 12 or even 15, and they are able to get money. Sometimes even those, they don't refund those money. They are not loans. They just write proposals and they get that money if they qualify, $500,000 or even 1 million or 300,000, which they can do to invest as a group. Because to me, I feel this issue of women not be able to speak for themselves is just because of they don't have anything for themselves. They depend on men 100%. So if they get their own money, their own investments, their own businesses, they can be able to speak, because even if it's working out of that marriage, they can work out and still be able to run their life as usual. So to me, still women empowering and education, the way you said, is the two things that will bring to the end of gender-based violence. Yeah.
You wanted to add something?
Yeah, I wanted to add, as PICO organization.
Yes.
We building capacities of women in their groups. We encourage them to build groups, and then we build their capacity in terms of financial, to get financial marshal. So as much as they do enterprise, they commit a certain percent to address issues affecting the women. GBV, even lack of education, not taking girls to school is also another serious issue.
Yes.
So at that level, we try to bring them together. They form group. We train them, for sustainability purpose, because we'll not depend on the NGO and the government the rest of our lives. Yeah. It's not sustainable. So we encourage them to come together, and they commit some, because they have to take the whole themselves, so that we'll win this issue.
Yes, and you've talked about your organization and how you build capacities. Have you seen this working, or kindly touch on that?
Oh, sure, because there are few that we've formed. We don't have the finances to really help them.
Another big challenge, right?
Big challenge on our side as well. But there's a way we use our expertise, we use our commitment, we go to them, build a capacity. The little I know about business, I train them. Because we're only helping them to manage their own small resources. They have small resources, and management of those small resources is another challenge, because they are not, most of them are not literate. So we've seen some success, because we've seen them coming together. That's one thing that was never there. Secondly, we've seen them even committing, say, 20% of their investment or their savings on paying school fees for girls. That's another success. So those small milestones we believe that in future will take us somewhere. Yeah.
There is, if we decide to hold each other accountable, I'm quite sure we can do something, but people don't know some of the things that happen where they live, or even where they work, could be cases of gender-based violence. For example, sexual harassment in workplaces. People don't know about that. Making sexist jokes or even touching someone inappropriately. How more can we do to create a safe working environment and perhaps a safe place that people know that this is one of the things that constitute GBV, including verbally?
Okay, that can be done by putting regulations in workplaces, e.g. by the government or these private sectors.
That's a good one. We have one here, right here in KBC.
Again,
yes.
To put strict regulations on people and punishments to those people who offense maybe women or ladies in workplaces. I know of many issues where nowadays bosses don't give out jobs to ladies without sexual favors. Even if you go to interviews, even when you're looking for a job like now, people like us, the youth who have finished school, they're just looking for jobs. You have the qualifications, but somebody's asking for a sexual favor to give you a job. With that one,
just fast and harassment.
That's and it's very immoral. According to me, such cases, it's only that you can't take action because some of these bosses are big people at the who in this Kenya. And big people with connection, and you are just like a minor person who has just completed school. And that's why you find that many ladies are not employed. And those who are employed, they can tell you their history. Of which, to me, I think that's something that strict regulation should be put in workplaces. That if you're found, it's better you get sacked or a strict action is taken on you.
Yes, Jeremiah, some people don't know that some things they do in workplaces or in their businesses or to their customers could constitute gender-based violence. It doesn't have to, somebody doesn't have to hit you so that it can be termed as a gender-based violence, and it works both ways for both men and for women.
True, it is a high time the employer should be responsible. The employer, I mean the bigger boss, there should be a commitment. Well, we have regulations. Most employers have a written, just a document called Code of Conduct and Ethics. But adhering to it is another issue. We might have policies or regulations, but adhering to them is another, is a different thing altogether. So we need a commitment, a very serious commitment from the top, and it's cascaded down to the juniors, because it's now rampant that senior people or senior bosses use compromised, immorally or immoral issues or immoral happenings or activities to lure the smaller, the junior people. So it's a high time we need a commitment. Like you, if you have people you're supervising, you don't compromise your relationship with them in terms of, entertaining small touches, because a small touch, even a facial expression, can amount to sexual harassment. But we don't know that. Secondly, we also need to have the institutions to have trainings, regular trainings on gender-based violence. And upon recruitment, the new during induction, the new employees should also be trained on that, and it become a culture. We need to create a moral kind of culture where people advocate good morals, good ethics, good conduct at the job place.
Yes, and still on that, let's look at legislation. We're talking about workplaces. We've seen even in businesses like fishing in some of the counties where they ask for sexual favors so that they may give them fish. So it goes all the way other than even workplaces. Let's look at legislation in the country. Do you believe that Kenyan laws are stringent enough to actually ward off GBV? Of course, we know about 10, 15 years for rape or for aggravated assault. But do you believe we need to do more so that to deter people who actually want to harass other people?
Yeah, I think we still need to do more. We have, in Kenya, we have the best well, for those I know, we have the best legislation. But there's that lack of goodwill from even the political political sector. We're lacking that political goodwill. Because now when you talk of GBV, when a case is reported, what next? Wait for investigation, what next? You'll find that it may be dragged for 10 years without being amicably solved. So there is that lack of goodwill. We have good legislation, but the goodwill is not there to make it work. And if we don't have the goodwill, then we'll not have any impact as far as those legislation are concerned. So I think we still need to do more in terms of goodwill and commitment from the law enforcers. They require the necessary people to enforce the law. Need to have that goodwill. And then also, we need to prioritize that when you talk of GBV, you're talking about somebody's life, because it can lead to death.
Yes.
So we're talking about somebody's life. So we need to even make it more stringent, more serious, if I can say. More serious says that if you are involved in it, it can even lead to summary dismissal and you're charged, and it can even lead to life imprisonment. So I think we need to, there is that commitment and even make it more stringent.
Indeed.
Yeah.
You believe
That's
we need
very
to
true,
adopt some of the laws? In some countries in Europe, they have stringent laws when it comes to gender-based violence.
That's very true. Like my friend has said, we have, like, we can't say the best, but we have a good legislation. But the problem now is enforcing these laws that are passed by the parliament. The problem we have in Kenya is we need to do something with our judicial system. You find that laws are passed in the parliament, but enforcing the law becomes the problem. Why? Because it takes years and years for an investigation to be done. Like you said, we need to put like the average time that any case concerning the gender-based violence should take before the judgment is made. Because like if you've raped somebody's daughter, surely, and when you're taken to court, the judges get compromised. That is so unfair. We know of many families and many cases we've read in gazettes and everywhere and social media. Action is taken, but when they go to court, the case disappears. You find that your file is missing. Surely. Or
dragging for so long.
Dragging for 5-10 years until now the people, the daughter's family feel like, it's nilisha tu hivyo tuachane naye. So something should be done in the judicial system about the gender-based violence.
You've brought up a good issue of implementation. We have a lot of laws that, if well implemented to the letter, could help a lot of people. Well, online I can see Dick Skin, Digir, watching News Check from Mangong. I love the show. I also love Ashok and Big Minds. Brian Otieno Odero, tuned from Masebula Village. Pastor Rogoni, you're tuned from Segutun. Kevo Waitown, tuned from Eldoret. Julie Juliet, tuned from Kitengela. Indeed, thank you so much for keeping it Channel 1. And indeed, in case you're just joining us, this is Channel 1 News Check, and today we're discussing 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. It's a United Nations campaign every year, and this year is quite different because we have never had COVID-19 pandemic before. And what has happened prior to this year is that the cases were not as many as this year, and of course because of the stay-home order by many governments to mitigate the COVID-19. And on set, I'm joined by two young people who actually are trying, we are trying to look at how we can help the situation, and especially right here in Kenya. We have Gloria, and of course we also have Jeremiah. Remind me of the prophet. But perhaps back to you, Jeremiah. Looking at the COVID situation and education, you see that after the schools were shut, we have witnessed, looking at the kids now, let's even get away from the family institution, school children. And we were talking about we should start from the home. What about the school?
Well, for the
because everything
children
seems to have broken loose after the kids after the schools were locked because of the COVID-19.
Yeah, very true. And before the child goes to school, he has to start from home.
Yes.
So that's why we're putting more emphasis at home, because it is at home that it is a home that depends whether the child is going to school or not. But when now they are at school, we have other parents at school who are the custodian of those children while at school, which are the teachers. Well, the syllabus in really sense emphasize on maybe other things, definition of some terms, but hardly or it's very little where gender-based violence is mentioned. So it's also important, one, for when it comes to curricular development, they incorporate gender-based violence in the curriculum. That is one. Two, the teachers should also act as the parents. They have been doing it, okay, but they need to fasten their effort to make sure that it's not happening in school. They also teach these children on their rights, as education rights, social, all the rights that a child is given by the state, and even natural rights. Second, thirdly, they also need to in a way campaign for the right, the appropriate behavior in schools, because you'll find that when the school reopens, I'm really afraid that very few girls will go to school because they are pregnant. If there were maybe 5 or even 10 in school, and that's the situation in most of the pastoralist communities, if there are 5 in school and 4 of them have dropped, we'll remain with 1. What are you talking about? We're talking about in the next 5-10 years to come, we'll not have a generation of girls in school. Even boys, they are also sexually harassed or also experience gender-based violence. And so I think education institutions also play a key role. Let the teacher campaign. Let also teacher join the campaign against gender-based violence. Let them teach. Let them, speak on behalf of the parents. Because they are the right custodians at that particular time, at that particular environment. Yeah.
Yes, and the United Nations, something that came out when you talk about the 16 days of gender activism against gender-based violence, they talked about knowing the data, the data that there is in counties, in countries, because if we are able to collect sufficient data, we are able also to divert resources to that. Because looking at the situation right now, when we talk about health, all attention is on COVID-19, but we shouldn't also negate other factors or even other sectors that are also ailing. Look at the president talking about the mental stability and health of Kenyans, and also actually talked about a raft of measures to streamline that sector. Do you believe that we should do more on the same, so that we may be able to be accountable and also divert resources prudently when it comes to GBV? Very true. And in the beginning of the show, I talked about the disconnect that exists between the data in books and the real action on the ground. And the actual in the ground. Because I started by saying we said 78%, masses have a 78% prevalence in FGM specific. Yes. That's what's in the book. But in reality, could be more than that. So there's a disconnect between the statistic we have and the actual happening. So we need a very serious investment in collection of data, because that will mislead even planning. That will mislead resourcing or resource allocation for that particular agenda. So, and the best thing we can do is invest on the grassroots intervention. We go local. We go local in the sense that, because, like, for example, I understand my village, Mothan,
somebody from Nairobi.
Yeah.
I know what my neighbor is doing. I know what my village is doing. So we need an investment, a very serious investment to the grassroots people. And that it's in there that will get the real data. Rather than just doing an online survey, for example, I can roll out an online survey. And then I sit in Nairobi, do analysis, and then I will report that 10% of girls in that village have been cut. But in real sense, maybe 100%.
Yes.
So we need a serious investment in data collection, and it narrows down, and it needs to be cascaded down to the grassroots level.
Of course, FGM is not only in your community, is rampant in Kenya. And I do remember CAS for gender, Rachel Shebesh, talking about, actually she was warning administrators, chiefs, DOs, now the DCCs, and also the county commissioners, talking about we will actually hold you accountable if we hear cases of FGM. Of course, in your culture, not singling it out, but it's quite rampant. How can we really change the mindset of people when it comes to culture? And you know, these are things that have happened for years. But the good thing is that slowly but surely, we are headed somewhere.
Okay, like I can say, the issue of FGM in my community is very rampant, but I can't compare it to the previous years. I can say there is a slight improvement compared to some years back.
Work in progress.
This is because of NGOs like AMREF has done a big role in improving the FGM campaigns in my area. They have done a lot by discouraging FGM, holding seminars, barazas, a lot they have done. Something has been done, but we have a long way to go. This is because, like my friend said, these people who have gone to school, the learned guys, are the one to show that FGM is not something that is very important. It adds no value to a girl's life. If they start marrying girls who have not undergone FGM, the society will be like, okay, so they can get married and get children and life goes on as usual, because they have a belief that if you have not undergone FGM, you'll not get a husband, you'll not be married by a Maasai man, I don't know, you'll not give birth, you'll not school because your feelings will be high, I don't know, you'll end up dropping because of early pregnancies. But if you see things in the ground, it's very different, because like me, I know most of the girls who have not undergone FGM, and they're the people who have gone to even university levels, compared to those who have gone through FGM and dropped at a primary level because of what they feel like they are not women. But for us, we had to prove that is not a right thing. So the government, the chief, like the CAS for gender said, the chiefs have a big role, because nowadays they don't do the celebration like they used to do long days ago. They used to prepare a ceremony and millions of people come and they undergo the FGM for their girls. But nowadays they do it secretly. They just don't do a celebration, just wake up, the mother is there, she do the necessary and goes. And all of it, just here last week it was done. Because they knew action is being taken on them. So nowadays they do it secretly. Now the chiefs and the DO and the government agencies should enforce that law and take action to the people who are found doing that.
Indeed. And perhaps, Jeremiah, you can add on that how we can stand against retrogressive cultural practices like FGM that is quite rampant here in the country. Remember that some parents have even become creative by smuggling their kids to neighboring Tanzania, doing the cut there and then bringing them back here in the country. Perhaps, you know, it's quite hard to deal with culture as it is. But now we have to stand against GBV, which is FGM being one of them. One of them.
Yeah, so I think we need a cultural approach. Being a cultural practice, we need a cultural intervention.
Yes.
We need to converse. We need to discuss this. We need to have a conversation with the right custodians of the culture. Because you cannot just go to a community and say, no, this culture is wrong, we need to stop it. It will not stop. As it is now, it needs an appropriate conversation. We need to bring the right people, like the traditional, the cultural leaders. We need to bring on board the elders and have a conversation. We need to bring the perpetrators, which are circumcisers also. So we need to bring on board the perpetrators. And instead of using force, we have a conversation with them. Because they will challenge you. They will tell you, we've been doing this. The reason why you are alive is because your mother was cut and she was married off and she got you when she was married.
Yes.
So they will challenge you in that way. But we need to talk with them, to have a conversation about culture. Let us question it. Let us not use force, because when you use force, we may not achieve anything. But we need a conversation at the grassroots. The reason why I am emphasizing on the grassroots is because that's where we will get them. That's where we'll have a bigger audience. That's where you'll even get the right people that are responsible to perpetrate those cultural practices. So it is, unless we have a conversation, let us talk. Why are you doing this? I think we should not do this because of this. Let us have that conversation until they get convinced that it is a wrong thing and they need to change. Otherwise, if we use force and not trying to demonize the culture, try to say it's a Maasai culture or the African culture is wrong, we're not going to achieve anything. Yes.
Let's go back to mental wellness. We just touched something on mental wellness, and of course the president did announce that there are going to be some changes in the system when it comes to mental wellness of Kenyans, and actually instructed the Ministry of Health to look keenly into that. Of course, a lot of GBV cases have been attributed to stress, depression, and other illnesses that are mental. What can we do? Perhaps the president did announce that, of course, there are changes that are supposed to be coming in, but at the end of the day, the buck stops with us.
The buck stops at us because we are the recipients of even the GBV and those changes in changes, as you say. But I still think the governments need to do much when it comes to investing to mental well-being or mental wellness. In the sense that it needs to be incorporated into the trainings, because when you talk of even medical practitioners, if you see medical practitioners committing suicide because of mental instability or mental disturbance, that even make it worse to us, because they are the right people to provide this wellness, mental wellness. And if the government doesn't invest appropriately into it, we're not going to make any difference. So my thinking is we really need institution mental to deal with mental issues, because they are very serious. They are claiming a lot of lives, and we're like, you're not even bothering. So it is the right thing to do, as the president said, but we need to see actions, and we need to have it, apply to all institutions. Schools, there should be somebody giving mental advice, mental wellness, trying to make them understand the situation and how we can cope with it, because some we can't change, but we need to change the way we think about them. So we need to see a change where it's cut across all the institutions.
Perhaps, Gloria, you can add on that. Had we neglected our mental wellness and put everything, we were bottling up everything without actually thinking about what will happen later, and then it explodes, but explodes in a really bad way.
Yeah, that's very true. I concur with the president that something must be done on our mental problems. You see, like my friend has said, we should create awarenesses, or in institution, we should place people at least to be dealing with such problems. You find like somebody is going through a serious depression, and he cannot speak about it, maybe because of fear, or he doesn't have anybody that he thinks that he can keep the information confidential. So you find that somebody is going through a problem, but instead of speaking out, because nobody is there to hear them or him, he just decides maybe to murder himself, disrupt his family.
Doesn't know they could be helped.
Yes. Start misbehaving in a way, and somebody don't understand them that it's because of the depression or the problems he's going through. So like he said, and like our president has said, we should do something, we should invest more so that we can get solution of these mental problems. Maybe in our health facility, we should have a guiding and counseling person. The school institution, we should have a guiding and counseling department. You know, some students go through a lot of stress in their lives, or even because they're at school, they have stress concerning home grounds, whatever is going on back in the home states. So they have nobody else. So that's why we get poor performance. And sometimes they don't know it's because of the stress the children are undergoing at home or even in the school, and they don't have anybody to speak about, to just blame the child that is not taking the academic serious. So it's good to invest in that, and I believe that if they put the guiding and counseling people in all the government institutions, or even not all the schools and the hospitals, there will be an improvement.
Indeed. And Jeremiah, perhaps to switch focus on something somebody had raised on social media, that couples now are realizing that they do not know each other. You know, in the morning I wake up, I come to work, perhaps my wife goes to work, in the evening we come, we find the kids and everything, and life goes on. But now with the COVID-19 and everyone has to stay indoors, now you find that people are realizing that there are so many aspects of your partner that you do not know. And I'm talking about it has also contributed to some of the cases that we are witnessing. We have left our kids to our helps and teachers.
Yeah, it's true. Coronavirus or corona pandemic have also some positive aspects in it, because it has forced us to be at home. Like it or not, you have to be at home, because you're probably working from home and your wife is working from home. So now you get to really know each other and better.
Get in each other's head.
And getting it. So I think it is going forward, the employer sector should invest on ICT to enable people to work from home, even after the world is healed from corona, so that we can get to be with each other enough to know each other better. Because some of the GBV is a result of not knowing each other. Maybe my wife did not know that, you know, I get upset easily on small things that we hardly do, you know, on the little time we spend. But now that I'm working from home, we are indefinitely together, and we're getting to know the small details about each other. So going forward, I think it's really important we invest on ICT so that we can even work from home, and it will help couples to know each other better, because you have no reason of going out in the name of going to job. You'll have to be at home, work at home, and be with your family and know each other better. And even the issue of being with your family, create that link, strong linkage between amongst the family members. And it's only possible if that is only possible if we invest on ICT, and we'll now be able to work remotely.
Of course, the couples really need to work on their relationships, because as that guy who talked about couples not knowing each other, now they're realizing, that's a lot of aspect about my partner that I didn't know. You wanted to add something on that?
I just said that's true. Many gender-based violence cases is because of that, is a result of that. Now couples are together, they have not known each other for long because they have not been spending time together. Maybe the husband has been traveling all along, just come to home, sleep and wake up in the morning. Now they are there, he knows everybody weakness. You hear parents saying that schools get open because the children are now becoming a burden. It's not that they are becoming a burden. It's now they know the work the teachers they have back there in the schools. So me, I think couples should work on their relationship because it's just for them to stay together an option instead of having violence every time.
Yes. To end GBV is a collective action that everyone in the society needs to look into. Because if you are not affected by the situation, you have somebody who is affected by the situation, or you've had somebody who has been affected by GBV or other forms of gender-based violence. We've seen the police and the Plan International, they are coming together to make something and for training and also to deliberate on how to handle some of these cases. Should we also incorporate other players? We have Nyumba Kumi. We also have yes, and as she pointed out, you could find that perhaps some local administrations would be compromised because you're told you're a chief and you're told let's just malize. Actually, they make some small kangaroo courts, and the issue is sorted out. Do you think we should incorporate more players?
True. Ending GBV is a collective responsibility. It requires a multi-sectoral approach where we have all the players on board. We have the police, we have the religious institutions, we have the education institution, we have the health institution, all the institutions responsible to come on board and address it. Even the parents themselves, the community leadership, the community members, all the players need to be involved. It's not a one-person show. It is a responsibility that cuts across all the players. So I think ending gender-based violence, we should incorporate all the players. We should encourage all the players to be on board. Employers, platform, they also play because they are affected. If your staff is sexually harassed, then your business will be affected. You know, so you might be not directly affected, but the person next to you is affected, then he will also affect you. So I think it is a multi-sectoral. It requires a multi-sectoral approach. All players on board, and we're going to win it.
Perhaps before you add on that, I remember a case I was handling in court where the OCS for along Thika Road actually was charged with murder, because what happened is that the woman went and reported that the husband was harassing her. So when the police went for the husband, they came and beat him up, and the following day he was dead. You see, and perhaps it was just a family disagreement, but was handled outside, and actually was actually Ruaraka police station, and he was actually charged with the murder and was found guilty. Are we very green when it comes to issues of handling gender-based violence? Because you hear the guy was picked up and he was beaten up with a metal bar until he died. We're very green on this.
I think
on the education and perhaps of sorting out gender-based violence, and perhaps that is why the police are having a training session with the Plan International.
Yeah, I think this is now the issue of the police, the law enforcers. Okay, as much as we say that action should be taken to those people who are practicing gender-based violence, it should be done in an orderly manner. Like that case of murdering someone is not something good or something that we can advocate for. They need to take law as it is. They should have took him to the police station, to court, get prosecuted, and maybe being imprisoned or something, or even wait for the evidence. Maybe they never even gave the person the time to explain what happened. So that one, as much as you say you want to bring to the end of gender-based violence, we should also take law as it should be. Like the issue of bringing everybody on board, like my friend has said, is something that will make us achieve what we want. if you bring the church, as you said, the nyumba kumi, wazees, the parents, teachers, and the children themselves, the NGOs, the county governments, and everybody, and the administrative agencies, we will achieve this. If we come together as a group for the interests of bringing to an end of gender-based violence, we will achieve if we work together as a team. Yeah.
In a broad way, I could both call you advocates for human rights, right?
Yeah, true.
And do you believe we have a shortage of people who are fighting for human rights? Because looking at the statistics is that the curves just keep rising when it comes to matters human rights and gender-based violence. Looking at even the police have now to be involved because it has now hit a point where we have a big problem in the country.
I think
do we need more advocates for this?
It's both way. We could be having enough already,
yes,
or we could be having a shortage.
Okay.
The reason why I'm saying that is we have people willing to talk about this. We have people willing to advocate for this, for this thing to come to an end. But they lack the required capacity. They lack the required facilitation. Like, for example, my friend here, she said she has just completed college and she's here unemployed, but she's addressing gender-based violence at her own capacity.
Yes.
But that comes with a cost because it requires you to move from point to point. It requires you to even, if maybe you're doing an online campaign, it requires some resources. So we could be having people willing to talk about this and advocate against GBV, but they lack the required investment, the required resources. Conversely, I can also say there could be a shortage. Because many people are not coming out to talk about it.
It's a big problem.
It's a big problem.
A lot of people are suffering in
even
silence.
The victims, the survivors themselves are not coming out to talk about it. Even if you talk about the chiefs, the chiefs are not even talking about. They could also be they could be going some other challenges. We might be blaming them, but in really says they are trying, but they are going through some challenges. So there's that lack of opening up. There's that lack of taking the bull on its own. Talk about it as it is. Talk about it even regardless of who you're talking to, because it will fall to the right ear one time. So it's both ways. Yeah.
Yeah, you are an advocate of human rights. Do you believe you have a shortage, or as he has said, could go both ways? And what more could be done to strengthen the advocacy for this?
Like I said,
yes,
it can be two ways. We might say we have a shortage, and this shortage is caused by maybe fear. I can say it's fear. Most of the people back in the ground feel like this is something that should not be happening, this is something wrong, this thing is dragging us back as a community. But they fear, if I stand up and talk against these activities and these practices, what will the community say about me? What will the elders say about me? So you see, there is that fear. And that fear is the one causing the shortages in advocating for the rights of the children especially. And also I can say we don't have the shortage. It's only that people, not everybody can afford. It's cost, whether it's very costly.
Yes.
Like you should wake up, go plan for motivational talks. You can't just go like there, like empty-handed. You need to take maybe the sanitary towels for the girls, the sanitizers during this COVID season, soaps. So you see, it's also costly, and not everybody can afford. So you find that it's both way. And that's why we say, if you find somebody that can fight for the rights or knows the people back there in the ground, the problems and the challenges they're facing, it's good if the government or the county governments hold their hands and work together with them as a team. Yeah.
Jeremiah, there is the case of gender equality and women empowerment. Do you believe perhaps this can go a long way in boosting the fight against the gender-based violence?
Sure. As you've seen, at some point, the issue of inequality highly contribute to gender-based violence. And if the women are empowered to also have some independence in decision-making and are financially independent, there will be that, it will be a solution. It will be a solution because when you talk of sexual harassment, giving somebody a job opportunity in exchange of sexual favors, that is because, and she has to agree because she has no otherwise, that is because she is not in a position, she has no alternative rather than accept the offer and give the exchange required. So I think gender equality is a solution. Investing in empowerment, women empowerment, you'll go along with campaign against GBV. Yeah.
Perhaps you could add something on that? Empowering women on the gender equality question. Perhaps it could work, or it could actually strengthen the fight against gender-based violence.
Yeah, if women are empowered, they will know their rights. They'll know what they deserve and what they don't deserve. And that will help, because now if the men sees the seriousness with the women, they'll fear doing something that they are doing right now. If they know that you're right, if you do me to this, I'll take action. I'll walk out and go to court. I'll walk out and go to the police. They'll fear. But now they know that you don't know anything. You are not empowered. You are not educated about your rights. They don't even know their rights. And that's why they are doing all this to the women. As my friend said, it's only education that will bring to an end of this thing. Education is the main thing. Because now we are seeing that in our community, because most of the women who are married now are of those old age or dropouts or everything. Because if you get learned women in the community, men will not undermine them as much as they are now undermining this one. So I think education will play a big role in it to bring to an end.
Let's go to gender-based violence survivors. Of course, they can add a big voice. And of course, many don't want to come out. If, of course, I've been abused by my wife, of course, I won't tell you as my friend Jeremiah, but at least if I decide to seek help, and I'm helped, I could help other people undergoing the same thing. Something interesting here. Guatemala, Kenya, and Uganda came together to develop guidelines which help researchers, participants, and organizations involved in research to make sure that research is carried out in ethical ways, enabling it to contribute to the transformation of survivors' lives and the elimination of GBV around the world. Of course, Kenya is partnering with other countries and other stakeholders to end these gender-based violence survivors. They could come in and could give a big jab to the fight against GBV.
Oh, sure. And
many are not coming out.
Yeah. And maybe before I respond to that, we were talking about gender equality.
Yes.
Just shortly before I respond to your question, there could also be a looming problem. We might empower women, and then the women come up and feel like they are above now men. That's another issue that is looming. And I think when empowering them, we should not be like it's men who are messing with you, it's men who are against your empowerment, but it is a culture, it's a tradition. That's what we grew up knowing. So that we should not empower women. Then when they are empowered, we start now empowering men because they will have been brought down by the women. So I think it is an issue of addressing the what is fueling the inequality, rather than this one gender versus another one. Otherwise, if we got that line, we'll empower women and then afterwards start empowering men.
We might reduce the gains that we've
we might really reduce the gains that we were to achieve.
Yes.
Now, coming to your question, survivors plays a key role. It is until survivors talk that we'll get to know these things. Because if I'm not a victim, if I'm not a survivor of gender-based violence, I may never know that they exist unless maybe I see from a friend or a neighbor. Or if my neighbor are good enough not to be involved in that, I'll not know. So for us to know that what exactly is happening, the survivors have to come out. Let them open up. And from there, we'll know how to go into achieve. Because it is a problem that will dictate the kind of solution that it requires. So survivors really plays a role, a very key role, and we encourage them to come out, talk about it. Let's have a conversation on that, and we're going to solve it.
Yeah, perhaps you can add your voice on that.
Okay, I think he said something that is very crucial.
Survivors.
That survivors play a key role in looking for solutions of gender-based violence, because they're the people who have the experience, who have undergone those mistreatments. They're the people who can speak out for us to know how to deal with these problems. So I think survivors or those people who went through the gender-based violence should open up and speak on their experiences.
Jeremiah, of course, our time is also dashing. 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. You are the Executive Director of PICO, Pastoralist Integrated Concerns Organization. What are some of the things that you will be doing in the 16 days? Of course, the theme being fund, respond, prevent, and collect. This is a 2020 theme for 16 days of activism against gender-based violence.
One, we need to, as PICO, we plan to have a stakeholders forum where we actually have to know what's happening. Now that COVID is here, the cases have gone up, the numbers have they have gone up. So as PICO, we have stakeholders forum to talk about gender-based violence. Secondly, we're having a campaign called back to school campaign, where we campaign to have all our students taken back to school, because, well, we are aware that some are now pregnant. Let them go to school until it's the right time to deliver.
Actually, a lot. A lot of them.
So it's not only that we say, they should not go back to school because she's 2 months pregnant. She has another 6 months where she can comfortably go to school and study like any other. That is another thing. Secondly, we're also encouraging teachers to really work on issue of discrimination at school, so that for these girls, because for them to accept to go back to school, they need not to be discriminated. Like, look at her, she has a big stomach. Such kind of things need to be acted on in school. So we generally say we're having a multi-sectoral kind of conversation on the issue of GBV, and we're taking a lead as a youth from Maasai community to campaign and advocate against GBV.
And you're also a human rights activist. 16 days, what do you plan at least to do to make a change to anyone who has undergone gender-based violence?
For the 16 days, I think we just talk to them, have great time, talk to the girls who maybe were pregnant, that it's not the end of life. There is still another chance. If you take it seriously and learn from your previous mistake, you'll always have another chance in life. Motivate them and give them a hope. Also, we'll talk to the girls back in the village that they are important people in the society. No matter how much men try to undermine them, they are the people who will bring change in the future.
And an interesting one here from Botswana. Botswana has announced plan to set up special courts dedicated to gender-based violence and related cases to protect women, children, and other vulnerable groups. Step in the right direction. Of course, talking about special courts to deal with this as we wind up. What are your final words?
My final word is I appeal to the institutions required to address gender-based violence, like the judicial systems. That issue of special courts could work very well in Kenya to have dedicated courts for gender-based violence. It's also an appeal to other stakeholders, the NGOs, the government agencies, the community members themselves, to take responsibility, because you are either affected directly or indirectly. So I appeal to everybody. This is our responsibility, and let us take it with all the weight it requires.
Yeah. The final words.
Okay. My final word is that the concerned agencies, the government, the NGOs, the community, the administrative people, that we join hands together as we work, and as we are planning to bring to an end the gender-based violence. Let's do it. Let's take it as our own responsibility. It's a collective responsibility. One person cannot do it. The government cannot do it on itself. The church cannot do it on itself. We need to join hands. So I urge everybody and the community back there that we should keep off some cultural practices that are not bringing a positive impact in our children's life and in our women.
Indeed, and of course I can see lots of you watching online, including Steve Dangote, who's talking about he works in Nairobi and the wife works in Eldoret, and asking perhaps what he can do to monitor his kids. That's actually another big challenge that has come out in this COVID-19 era. And after, in the light of not only 44, we had 22, I don't know, in Maranal or somewhere.
Bungoma.
Yes, we have Egas Vanderwas tuned from Taita, Eric Moisan, big up KBC live from County 001, that's the County of Mombasa, Lillian Kaurai. Good work, my sister, Gloria Seleyan Mositet. Of course, that's a compliment for you. Frederick Osengo, you're also watching, you're telling me where you're watching us from, but they are many. Njuguna Langat, watching news check from Nyahururu Barak, they're locked from county number 001. Indeed, we have been discussing the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. A lot of actions in the 16 days that will culminate into a big function by 10th of December. The theme for this year, Orange the World. Of course, orange being the color that is being used for this campaign. Fund, respond, prevent, collect. In any way that you can do to help us root out the gender-based violence is more than highly welcome. Thank you indeed so much for watching online and also on our other social media platform. And don't forget the KBC app so that you can keep up with what is happening, including our very entertaining programs on the go. Just download the app, or you can follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, and also on YouTube. Simon Karoda is our sign language interpreter. My name is Ben Troy Njue. Do have yourself a lovely morning. Some minutes to 12.
Tonight on KBC Channel 1.
You're fired. Get lost.
What did I do wrong? Oh, Rooms amelewa ama amebleki.
Benito, unless you want me to put you 6 feet under, I suggest you hide now.
There is no way that the daughter of Rosendo Vasquez will be begging for affection.
In love with Ramon. Next on.
Without you, tell me, how can I survive? Though they will try and try and try, they will never conquer I. We have no fear. We are the lions in the jungle.
Jamaica, Jamaica. Oh, my reggae, nice and it make ya.
Under the pressure, yeah, under the pressure, If you're poor, job will take away now. We cheat and take a car.
They showed their might in the inaugural FIBA African in Mali with the silverware. They are ready to make it even better in the FIBA AfroBasket 2021 qualifiers in Rwanda. Let's rally behind the Kenya Morans as they take on the opposition from Angola, Senegal, and Mozambique from 25th to 27th of November on your true sports partner KBC Channel 1 in their quest for success. This is just the beginning. Save the dates for the best.